Welcome to another Tim Talk. I think we have like 40 of them now so far, and 86 people follow them. That's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. I hope they're helping you all. I know this crazy COVID time, it's hard for people to get in any kind of a routine that's normal, and gosh, let nature help you. So this first talk I want to give is called The Art of Mentoring. And what I want to talk about, first of all, what I want to say about mentoring is it is vital to the growth of a human being. Every single animal, tree, and plant gets mentored in the way that nature does it. And for human beings to develop into good people who live from kindness and from service and from love and from purpose and a reason for being on this earth bigger than ourselves, we need to be mentored. And like so many things that nature has taught us and that our ancestors taught us, they were masters at mentoring. We have let these things go in our modern world. Some on purpose, some because we're lazy, some for who knows why. It's confusing because it's so good for us. But we have to take it serious and bring it back. So I ask everyone who's looking at me, do you seriously think of yourself as a mentor? And if so, who are you mentoring? And you might think, oh, mentors could only be elders. That's a whole other subject, is a respect of elders in our society. That's another Tim Talk. But I'm not talking about that, although elders do mentor. I'm talking about you can be a mentor if you're 10. You can mentor a kid who's 6 or 7. But usually you don't start mentoring until you get a little bit of life experience behind you and you can start to share. But anywhere, I think in the later teens onward, you can take mentoring seriously. I think you can really come into your own with it in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. You can become masterful. And it's really not difficult. It's really simple. And it's incredibly fulfilling for the soul and for you and the person that you mentor. All right, so I'm going to start by telling you a little story about my own self being mentored growing up. I have had a good life, I think, a very good life. I'm happy with it. I'm actually in love with it. If I had to do it all over again, there's very little I'd change. And I'm here in my most beautiful place in the world. You're looking at some of it, a bark teepee behind me. And I can owe a lot of this back to my mentors. I can track it back to my mentors. And my mentors, they started with me when I was 8, 9, 10, in that period of time. And I had 3 serious mentors. One was a man named Bo Almroth, which I might have already spoken about him before. And Bo Almroth was a family friend, and he was the father of my best friend. And he was an avid backpacker and lover and seeker of the wilderness and the wild ways. Truly in love with nature. And he gave that to me by taking me on countless hikes, by taking me on one of the most formulative trips of my life, a road trip at 12 years old in the summer when we were off from school. He rented a truck, an old truck, or bought it. I'm not sure which it was. And him and my friend and I went to 35 states. We backpacked in many. And we went into big cities, and we were required along the way to read books and to study about nature. We visited countless national parks. We ended up full circle back at Mount Shasta. I did a rite of passage on the mountain where I created a code of honor to live my life by. I know I've spoken about this. It's worth saying more. And he stuck with me. And I remember in my later teens, as I grew older, we grew apart a little bit as I went into my teen years. And then all of a sudden I was told that he was sick and he died of cancer really quickly. And I went and I gave part of the eulogy for him at a young age. It was so sad. But he was there. The timing was right. And he mostly led by example, and that was mentoring for me. And he also held me accountable. He held me accountable to my word. He made me give my best when I was backpacking, living and doing wild things. He made me do them well. He taught me the deep love of nature, just being out and loving nature without always having to do something. He instilled that in me, and it never left, and it formulated my life. I had an uncle named Uncle Bill who lived in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. He was on my mother's side of the family. He was her brother. And, oh man, he was a hunter and a fisherman. And unlike so many hunters, he was an honorable hunter. He hunted with honor. In other words, he ate what he killed. He worked hard to get what he killed. And he used it all. And every time he ever killed anything, he cried. He cried. And I cry now, too, when I used to hunt, which I don't now. And fishermen, oh, my God. The thing I really fell in love with was fishing. And Uncle Bill taught me to fish. And there was nothing more enjoyable to me and more connecting to nature than wandering up small mountain creeks trying to catch trout. I remember one time I was in a fishing hole that was created by a beaver, and he was there, and he was laughing, and I saw a beaver swim into its den, and he said, "Go get it." And so I went. I swam into the beaver den, up, down, and up into it. I come out into this dry space, and there's a beaver with 3 babies. One of the most memorable moments of my life. She didn't try to attack me, because I had love in my heart. And I didn't bug her. I looked, and I went, whoa, and I swam out. And then back to fishing. And he took me, he had this little, off-road thing, what's called a tote goat. And I guess it was like the old days, what would be, the equivalent of it today would be like a mountain bike, a motorcycle. And we went everywhere, on every dirt road. We just took off. Nothing stopped him. And that was so fun. And I remember I'd grab onto him. He had a big old belly. And I'd hold on to him. He'd be smoking a big fat cigar. And I remember I fell in love with cigars because Uncle Bill smoked them. And we just had the greatest time ever. And I remember at the end of the cigar, he'd always chew it up and eat it. I know that's so gross. But as a kid, it was like, what? You know, you loved it. I loved it. I couldn't believe it. So crazy, I know. But he took mentoring seriously. He was teaching me through example and through experience. And my third major mentor was my grandfather, who lived on a homestead in the Mission Mountains, or a branch of the Rocky Mountains in Montana, and get this, on the Flathead Indian Reservation. And that was mind-boggling. The small little town, how it got there, I'm not sure. Probably the native Indian people sold the land to someone early on, and they built a town, but it was surrounded by the reservation. And the Native Americans there and the local people all got along well. And my grandfather, he built the roads. He built the dirt roads through the town and through the area. And I could go out every day and hang out, and he taught me how to homestead. He taught me how to feed cows and water them, and he taught me how to take care of chickens and pigs, and sheep and goats, and he taught me how to trim trees and how to garden and grow plants and run a homestead. And they lived in this old house. It was so cool. And because of who he was, and he was so respected, all the native Indian people there loved me. And they took me on. So I got the benefit of not only being mentored by him, but all of them. And I fell in love with the Native American way of life. And I often dreamed of living like they did. And I often felt really sad and empathic about what had happened to them. Even now I speak and I feel tears coming, because it didn't have to be that way, that they were all wiped out by our oncoming march from the European people, my ancestors Irish. It could have been different, and it wasn't, and we can never get that back. And that is to deviate a little, that is a wound to the soul of the earth, It's a wound to the soul of each and every one of us that culture was lost in such a horrific way, and there was no real effort to care for it. And even today, there's nothing really. I think just to deviate a little more, I think if our country had good leadership, it would be a very beginning of a healing to just admit what our European ancestors did to the Native Americans and apologize for it. There's not a lot more we could do, but right now that I know of, but admit it, tell the truth, learn from it, and there's something in an apology, if it comes from the heart, that allows for healing to take place, and then good things come from there. That's a dream I have. So that I wanted to say that. So, and then my father mentored me in a different way. He worked hard, and he took care of our family. And my mother mentored me by showing me love. She showed me truly what the power of love, and I mean that. I mean that. It's very serious about this. And my father was consistent. He was constantly there for me, always loving me through all my ups and downs and in-betweens, and just a hard-working man and with good values, love, kindness in his heart. So that's some of my story. Now I want to break off here, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to start talking about mentoring in detail. Thank you for listening. Hope.